Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hello, 2017. Thank you so much for listening to the Condo Coaches. The Condo Coaches radio show, you can find us anywhere and everywhere you want to listen to us. So iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook. You can find us, just search for The Condo Coaches. And of course, as always, we're streaming live right now on Facebook, facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. You can normally catch us on Mondays, but because of the holidays, we've been bumping the show over to Tuesdays. But starting next week, we'll be back in our usual time slot, Mondays at 1 o'clock, for those of you who like watching us live. And of course, because we are streaming live, you can send us your questions, your comments there. We'll read them live here during the taping of our show. And we broadcast the show over the weekend all across the state of Florida. We have stations in Orlando, down in Miami. We are now on a second station here in the Tampa Bay market. So we're incredibly excited. We are on what they call a flamethrower, 860 WGUL here in the Tampa Bay market, an incredible radio station. And we are excited to be there to kick off 2017 real big and loud and proud of the work we're doing here with the Condo Coaches. If it's your first time listening to the Condo Coaches, we're a team of educational and informational resources for board members and residents who live under a condominium or homeowners association. Our mission is to help these associations run effectively, efficiently, and on budget. So with me, as always, head coach Dean Akers. How you doing, Dean?
Johnny, great.
How was your New Year's?
It was eventful, always. Love New Year's.
Good. Mine was a little quiet, which is, I think, a good thing for 2016 going into 2017. I think it's good to make that transition nice and smooth here as, being that 2016 was a crazy year.
Totally crazy.
Totally crazy year. But as we also have a guest with us, we have Christy. And Christy, we're going to get to you in just a minute. Well, what we usually like to do is we like to open the show talking a little bit about some of the issues, phone calls, emails, Facebook messages we're getting from people out there. Dean, is there one that kind of comes to top of mind there that you want to kick off the show with?
Well, two things is last week we thought after the show, with the holiday, it would be quiet.
Sure.
Everybody taking the whole holiday. Not a chance. We had more reach outs for our book, the PDF book. We had calls. I went and spent time also with a board last week on Wednesday down in Southeast Florida, and I got to tell you, we walked in as coaches. We walked out ecstatic that what we were able to bring to them. They were very troubled financially, and our previous show about the financial and doing the financial analysis. We did that this week for them and sent it to them. It's changing their world.
Now, again, kind of give us a refresher because with the holidays, it seems like an eternity ago. We do provide a financial assessment. So one of our condo coaches is going to come in and do a financial assessment free of charge for your board of directors in your condominium or homeowners association. And what exactly does that entail?
Well, in this particular case, they were having cash flow issues. So we came in and did a statement of cash flows. We showed them where their cash was coming and going and why. And nobody had ever showed them that. And the particular management company said, well, that's not required by law. And some of our coaches said it's not required by law, but it's just a good business practice to know your sources and uses of cash. So we're finding that most properties don't do that.
Wow. Okay. Well, and then again, I mean, especially going into a new year, you definitely don't want to start off on the wrong foot financially with the size of some of these budgets that they're working with. I mean, I'm sure being that it was a property down in South Florida, it was probably a substantial budget.
It was a big budget, but Christy and I were driving over to visit with you today about how these volunteer board members, which are awesome, they volunteer their time. And of course, us condo coaches are volunteering our time to help. But it's amazing how much burdens put on them, like, hey, you're president now, and now you're responsible for a $1.5–2 million budget. You're responsible for rules and regulations. You're responsible for law. You're responsible for all this. And the day before that, you were having a tequila or something at your house, you know. So it's
didn't have a
deal.
care in the world. Well, and it goes back to the insurance show, which I didn't even realize that that property should be taking out insurance to cover the board of directors.
Oh, yeah. They have a huge fiduciary responsibility, and they need to have errors and omissions as an officer. And then it's not just errors and omissions as an officer. They need to learn, because if they do stuff that is blatantly wrong, your errors and omissions sometimes will not cover you. So
Sure.
it's very important
Has
that
to be within reason.
Yeah, and we're doing this next quarter. We're setting up board member training classes through some of our volunteers all over Florida. If somebody's interested, just email us, and we'll in your particular area, we'll have a board meeting, educational, where they can get certified and stuff. So.
All right, perfect. And anybody, I mean, you mentioned that you did one of these classes not long ago, where they invited anybody who might be interested in running for the board of directors, and you had quite a room full.
Not only that, we went back last week, and we were involved in helping them elect their first transition board, and because of our help, they were able to get a large turnout both for the board or for the vote, and also a large turnout of active homeowners that wanted to be involved. Which, if I had to pick, the biggest thing is that people tell me all the time is getting people involved is the biggest challenge.
Sure. Well, and I think that also helps add some credibility and some trust into that new board, right? Going into the new year.
Yeah, and what they did, which I thought was cool, and our condo coaches helped, is they actually, which is very odd as far as the industry would be, we had our condo coaches went over and helped them with an orientation of what it would be like to be a board member for anybody that might have been interested.
Yeah.
So what happened was, where they were expected no interest, after this volunteer group of condo coaches shared what it was really like to be a board member and how the condo coaches would be there to help them, they had the biggest turnout to get involved, which everybody was ecstatic about.
Well, and that only helps. I mean, for people to have that firsthand experience and knowledge and at least perspective of what the board of directors is going to be dealing with.
Yeah, and it also gave the ones that didn't, it was like a unified effort. It was funny because when it was all over, it wasn't like thems and theys.
Yeah.
The whole group felt empowered now to run their association, and it was all through coaching prior to this event.
That's awesome. And if we can help you with your board of directors at your community association, give us a call, 813-331-5415. Let us know of any issues you're dealing with. Let us know how we can help you. And trust me, we can help you in more ways than you can imagine. 813-331-5415 is the phone number for the Condo Coaches. You can also email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. You'll get an email back from Dean himself. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. And of course, all of our information is available on our website, thecondocoaches.com. You mentioned real quickly, I'm going to mention it again, the booklet that everybody's going crazy for. If you're a COA or an HOA board member, the top 10 things you need to know. It's a free download. All you got to do is go to our playbook section on the website. You tell us how to get a hold of you, and we're going to email you a PDF copy of our booklet, 10 things you need to know if you are a COA or an HOA board member. And it's going like hotcakes. I mean, you gave away hundreds of them at the past couple trade shows you've been to. You've got another couple trade shows coming up, and we're going to do another run of that, including our second booklet, which I'm really excited to talk about soon. And so get it now, and we'll, of course, obviously let you know when the next booklet comes out so you can download that one as well.
If you had told me when we started 8-10 weeks ago that we would have given away thousands of the books and reordering thousands in print now, I mean, I would have looked at you and said, nah, not a chance. And the funny part about the book is the feedback after they get it.
Sure.
So it's not just something they stack on their desk and never look at, or in their house or whatever. They're actually going through it, and because you can tell when they call in and they go, what about this? I saw this. What should I do with this? I mean, it really feels good. And our other volunteer coaches, the feedback I'm getting from them is, wow, this is just so nice to be able to give back, because all these people are volunteering.
Well, it's a legacy document, because you can pass that on to the next board and to the next board and to the next board. That stuff that's in there never changes.
Never changes. Or at least it hasn't. We don't know about our legislator this year, but it's all strong stuff.
Right. Well, let's get into a question that we got here off of Facebook. We got a couple minutes. I think we can cover it. It's a question from Lavinia, and she goes, what's this thing called the 40-year rule? And you mention it all the time, so she was definitely watching the show. She goes, what's this thing called the 40-year rule, and what does it cover?
Well, it's a 40-year recertification of buildings down in southeast Florida primarily. In Broward and Dade County. Okay. And it's a requirement that you have to have your building basically re-inspected and recertified for occupancy. And includes elevators, electrical, structural, everything, and it's required. To tell you the seriousness of it, we had a member call us about 6-8 weeks ago on it, and they actually got a letter from the city of Fort Lauderdale, a condemnation letter because they had not recertified. So now they had to get an attorney to go out and get them a longer time to get it recertified.
Get an extension.
Yeah, and now they had to get a bank loan because they didn't have the reserves. It was just a huge nightmare, and our condo coaches could help. If somebody's even feeling like they're not sure about it, they need to reach out to the condo coaches and let us do a quick study of where they are.
Yeah, because that 40-year rule is based on what date?
The date of their first certificate of occupancy. You know, when the building was CO'd.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, we have a guest coach with us, as we often do. It's Kristi Demers-Crowell. Did I pronounce that?
Demers-Crowell.
Demers-Crowell. See, I wasn't even close.
It's a tough one.
All right, Christy. Well, we're going to get to you in the next segment. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
The Condo Coaches Radio Show, 813-331-5415 is our number, 813-331-5415. Of course, you can find us at thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. Or you can email Dean, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. Our topic for today is going to be legal issues with condominium and homeowners associations, especially when it comes to damages and weather-related issues. And so we'll get to that in just a bit. It's the Condo Coaches Radio Show. We'll be back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
There are many sounds in your day-to-day life. There are sounds that wake you up. Sounds that make you smile. Sounds that energize you. And sounds that help you relax. But there are some sounds that can alert you to danger and can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you information about severe weather events, Amber Alerts, or other emergencies in your area. With critical information from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know, wherever you are. For more information, visit ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you so much once again for listening from wherever you may be listening. Again, you can find all of our past episodes anywhere you can find the Condo Coaches. Thecondocoaches.com, on Facebook. You can find all of our episodes there. You can also find us on YouTube. And of course, big old iTunes. You can podcast the episode. It sounds phenomenal. I was listening to it the other day. It's a little weird listening to yourself, but I said, let me make sure that these sound pretty good. And sure enough, man, iTunes does not disappoint. I was able to listen to it on my ride home, and the show sounded great. You didn't need to actually see it. We're in such a visual age now where everybody wants to see it, that even listening to the podcast I thought was a lot of fun. And so you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, if you want to podcast the show, of course, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, thecondocoaches.com. 813-331-5415 is our number if you want to participate. 813-331-5415, or help@thecondocoaches.com if you've got a question or an issue that we can help you with. Again, the Condo Coaches Radio Show, we're a team of educational and informational resources here for people who are serving on a board of directors in a condominium or homeowners association. Our guest coach for today is Kristi Demers-Crowell. right? Did I get it that time?
Close.
Demers.
Demers.
The wrong,
You
emphasis on the wrong syllable. All right. So we're going to be talking about insurance situations, insurance losses, when we're talking about some weather-related, some just naturally occurring issues. So a little bit on you, Christy. Since 2002, you've served as a plaintiff's attorney for policyholders, and you've handled hundreds of property insurance cases, including losses from hurricanes, sinkholes, fires, fire collapse, or just collapse, water intrusion, theft, vandalism, and of course other causes. Your practice focuses on commercial and residential property insurance claims, business interruption, bad faith litigation, and insurance agent negligence. She's dedicated her career to helping homeowners and businesses recover from catastrophes and forcing insurance companies to keep their promises. From condominiums to homes to restaurants and other businesses, Christy has dealt with losses from the start of the claims process through appraisal and trial. A native of St. Petersburg, Florida, which is very awesome. You've also come up in the legal community here, so thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
That is a great resume, and I think right there you also encompass kind of how we're going to approach today's show. We're going to talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end when it comes to filing a claim when you're dealing with either weather-related circumstances like hurricanes or naturally occurring catastrophes like sinkholes, which, of course, here in the Tampa Bay area we have quite a bit of. And so getting to the before situation, all right, we know when there's a hurricane coming, sometimes, we have an idea of we're in a potentially high time of year for tornadoes. How does one prepare for these emergency situations if you're sitting on a board of directors?
Well, there's different ways to prepare, and there's different pieces to that puzzle. Okay. Obviously, you need to be prepared in terms of making sure that the property itself is ready, that your chairs are and things that could fly off and fly around or put away and things of that nature. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Okay. I'm here to talk about how you can prepare in the terrible event that you have to make an insurance claim, that you have to make a claim for property damage on that policy that you've paid all those premiums for. Now, I've been working for building owners since 2002, as you mentioned, but I've been practicing since 1998, and I started by representing the insurance companies on these types of claims.
Okay.
And
so you've been on both sides of the table.
Yes,
That's
and
great.
I handled hundreds and hundreds of claims for insurance companies, so I really got to understand how they work and what motivates them. And that's changed a lot over the 18 years or so that I've practiced. Unfortunately, things have gotten more and more difficult for the policyholder, the person making the claim, to get paid what you're owed under that policy. That's a contract where they owe that building owner the fair amount of the loss, and they have an obligation to pay it, but it doesn't always work that way. So what can you do?
Is it because there is such a high rate of occurrence here in Florida, where it's such a high risk state, where they're more hesitant to fulfill their end of the bargain on those policies?
I wouldn't say that. I think it's really because they're in the insurance industry, and insurance companies themselves are in a very counterintuitive, at a very awkward position of wanting to make money, while at the same time they've got an obligation to pay the full and fair amount for the loss. And those things don't always meet, those things butt heads. And so obviously they're going to make more money the lower least they pay on a claim. Right,
and they're publicly traded companies often, and it's going to hit their bottom line.
Exactly. And in the old days, claims used to be handled differently. There was the customer service aspect to it, and building owners could feel like, they could just rely on their insurance company to look out for their interests and kind of guide them through the claim process. And things have just gotten tougher and tougher. And that's not really the way it is anymore. And you really need to get prepared to protect yourself so that if you're not paid what you're owed, it's not too late. You've got your claim documented, and you're ready to go to bat against the insurance company if that becomes necessary.
Now, you were talking about preparing in kind of the normal sense that those of us who've lived in and born and raised in Florida are used to, which is, again, putting away the chairs and the table and all the stuff outside, bringing it inside. But how does, let's say, a board of directors prepare their community, for those insurance claims that more than likely they'll have to make once the storm passes?
Well, I know you all had an insurance show, and I'm not going to focus a lot on this piece of it, but it is important for condo associations to make sure that their buildings are insured to value. And that means that they need to be having their properties appraised and that they understand what the value of those properties is and that they bring in experts to advise them on how much insurance they need, okay? Because if the properties are not insured to value, then you can have problems ultimately getting your claim paid, and there may be penalties under the insurance policy if you make that mistake.
And we know some experts, don't we, Dean?
Yep.
Yeah, so, exactly. Exactly.
So Christy, who is, we're grateful to have you on the show today. Again, if you're listening and you'd like to have somebody come out, do an assessment or an appraisal on your community to make sure that, don't wait until summer comes around, because that's when everybody's going to get slammed for appraisals and that sort of thing. Do it right now. Reach out to us, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. We'll send a team of condo coaches to go do an overall assessment of your community, and we can even also help you in terms of getting an appraisal, make sure that you're obviously insured for the adequate amount of value that your community is worth.
Exactly. And the other thing that really is really important is to make sure that board members need to make sure their unit owners understand how they need to be protected. Those unit owners need insurance, and they also need loss assessment insurance. Let me tell you a story about a terrible fire loss that I was involved in. Okay. These folks were not prepared for this at all. It's a beautiful condo association on the water, and a unit owner apparently left a cigarette burning on a balcony. And before they knew it, there were calls being made. They could smell smoke. And before they knew it, the fire department was being called out. And it was a tragic situation because in this instance, the fire department thought there was a false alarm and left. By the time they came back, the building was completely engulfed in flames. Sure. And that building was a total loss, just burned to the ground. No one was injured. Everyone got out safely. But now the association is, in complete, confusion as to now what do we do from square one. We've got to rebuild this building, and where are all these unit owners supposed to go? Do we even have enough insurance to rebuild this building? And that became... It
was literal disarray. I mean, because not only psychologically, the mental aspects of overcoming a tragedy like that, but also the logistics behind it, like you said, finding a place for all those individuals to go and making sure that they're taken care of. And then how do you begin the rebuilding process, right?
Exactly. And one thing that people started getting notices on from the board shortly after that is, see if you can get yourself some loss assessment coverage. Well, this was after the building had burned to the ground. None of these folks could get loss assessment coverage, but the board was sending out letters because they were becoming very worried about whether they had enough insurance to rebuild this building and what their potential liability was going to be to these unit owners. And so, of course, none of the unit owners could get loss assessment coverage at that point, and many of these unit owners didn't have insurance themselves either. Wow. So it was a really, really tragic situation, and continues to be for many of those unit owners who are struggling with mortgages on these properties.
Well, and oftentimes we think about these situations being hurricanes or lightning storms or something more severe and obvious, but something like this was started just by a simple act of carelessness, a cigarette being left out on a balcony,
which could happen so easily.
Right.
Another thing that boards really need to be prepared for is water losses. Now, that's probably going to be something that they may face more regularly. Yeah. They need to be prepared for water losses by having an emergency services contractor that they trust ready to go.
All right, awesome. We'll get into a little bit more on that in the next segment. Well, again, joining us is Kristi Demers-Crowell.
Yes, sir. You got it.
I swear I'll get it by the end of the show. All right. If you want to participate, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, or just hit us up on Facebook. We've got the Facebook Live feed going on right now. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. We'll be back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you so much for listening to the Condo Coaches. We have a great show today. We're talking about legal rights when you have issues as an association with insurance losses, sinkholes, hurricanes, or even something as simple as a cigarette that was left out on a balcony that obviously caused a fire, damaging an entire building. You know, these kind of things that you can't, necessarily plan for all the time. We also started to talk a little bit about water intrusion. With us, our guest coach is Kristi Demers-Crowell.
You got it.
There we go. It only took me to the third segment. And she is a plaintiff's attorney for policyholders. She's handled hundreds of property insurance cases, including losses from hurricanes, sinkholes, fires, collapse, water intrusion, theft, vandalism, and you name it. Yeah, if it's happened, I'm sure you've probably seen it by now, right?
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
so
sir.
you were talking, of course, about this terrible incident with the fire that took out an entire building, and the community not being certain about whether or not their insurance policy was able to cover the rebuilding of the damage from the fire. And then also we started to talk a little bit about a more common occurrence, which is water intrusion. And you've dealt with that, Dean, already with the Condo Coaches. How is the board of directors supposed to prepare for something like this?
Well, one important step they can take is to make sure that they have vetted, so they've explored and maybe interviewed and figured out who they want to call out to do their emergency water mitigation services in the event there is a catastrophe. And that catastrophe can be, the types of claims I've been involved in can be, we're talking from Pensacola and Hurricane Ivan to Jacksonville. I've had a building where there was so much water intrusion that the building was basically on the verge of collapse, to hurricane losses down in the Miami area. Or one of the more recent cases I was involved in where the fire sprinkler system malfunctioned water was just saturating unit after unit in this luxury condominium, floor after floor, before they could stop it. Right. So all of these situations with water, you got to be prepared to stop the damage, and they call that in the insurance industry to mitigate the damages. You want to keep it from getting worse because, of course, what comes after water? Mold. Right. And you want to try and do your best to stop, to keep those damages mitigated. So
especially with the humidity here in Florida, it only perpetuates or increases the likelihood of you having a mold problem down the road.
Exactly. And as with so many things, unfortunately, with property insurance, mold it was an area that the insurance industry put caps on. And there's been a lot of coverages, and we've all seen it here in Florida, that have been all but eliminated or narrowed and limited to the point where you look at your policy and you wonder, what do we have coverage for anymore?
Sure.
But in any event, so you want to focus on the
really
water.
Really quick on that, is it been because the insurance companies have been scared to come in and offer coverage? So has it been a way to kind of find some balance to try and keep some of those insurance companies here in the state? Is that why that's been done?
In the insurance industry, if they perceive an area where, and it's not that they care, it's a framing issue, where they're getting a high volume of claims, even if in years where, we haven't had any hurricanes here in Florida for over a decade.
Right.
But if there's an area where they're getting hit hard and they're having to pay out a lot, that affects their bottom line. These insurance companies are in the business of making a profit ultimately. And while their business does involve standing at the ready and being at your aid as the insured when the catastrophe occurs, and you'd think that just the goodwill and the PR that you get from doing that would make them more inclined to pay that claim and pay what they're owed. That's just simply not the way the business works anymore. And when they get hit hard in certain areas, they've gone to the legislature and they've limited the coverage. We've seen it happen with sinkhole coverage, collapse coverage, water intrusion. Now they're going after the mitigation piece of it, the water mitigation, by attacking the contractors who perform these mitigation services and trying to limit their ability to take what is called an assignment of benefits from the building owner, which allows them to go ahead and pursue getting their bill paid and let the building owner move on with recovery, is the bottom line. Now, are there bad apples? There's bad apples that serve as an example that these insurance companies can then bring up to the legislature and say, hey, look at this abuse. Yes, every area has bad apples, but they seize on those bad apples, and then they have been very, very successful in getting coverages narrowed in this state. So even in years where they have not had to pay out very many claims.
Yeah. Well, and so we were talking, of course, of how you prepare beforehand. We talked about getting an assessment done of your community, an appraisal done of the value of your community to make sure that your insurance is going to be adequate to cover any major damages. And now, let's say that an unfortunate event happens, something catastrophic, like you mentioned, the fire sprinklers, or one of the units catches on fire. And this, of course, is more common with the condominiums than the single family homes, because they have their own coverage and their own homeowner insurance policies. What needs to happen during the process? Because obviously there's 1,000,001 things that you need to worry about as soon as something tragic like this happens. From an insurance standpoint, from a legal standpoint, what do you need to do to protect yourself?
Okay. Well, most people don't realize that when they buy a property insurance policy, they think that now that obligates the insurance company to come in, determine whether it's covered, how much is owed, and pay it. And that they don't have obligations under that contract. But that's not true. Property insurance policies have a whole list of things, required things that the insured, that the building owner must do in order to recover. And if you don't do them, or you don't do them in a timely manner, then you may not get paid for your claim. So what are these things? Well, the most important one is prompt notice of the loss. So you want to notify the insurance company promptly. In a catastrophe situation, that can mean maybe not just calling your agent. I mean, I've handled hundreds of hurricane claims after 2004 and 5. So we had Ivan, Francis, Jean, on and on, Wilma and Charlie, and that was a crazy time. So the resources of the insurance industry were stretched thin, and people would call their agent, just a phone call, and later on down the road, when the attorney got involved, the insurance company was saying they never got notice of the claim. So it's really important to document your notification.
To have written documentation, right? So
try
an
to
email,
do it in writing,
right? An email would help,
or a fax,
okay.
Or these days you could even record yourself reporting the claim. Don't just report it to your agent. Try to get it also reported to your insurance company.
To the insurance company directly.
And document that any way you can. I mean, if the power's down, that might affect it. But even if you have to resort to, if you don't have a way to email or fax at the time, if you can even just take notes or use your phone to record yourself reporting the call and say it's such and such a date and time and I am reporting this claim, that's really, really helpful. So prompt notice of the loss is a critical duty that you have to do as a building owner. And the reason why is the insurance company needs to come in there promptly before the damages get worse and assess what the extent of the damages are.
Right, and that way they know exactly, from this point, prior is where they're going to be covering.
Exactly.
Okay, now, sorry, real quick, I just want to give out the phone number one more time because there are folks who are potentially in this situation. So if you want to get a hold of Christy or Dean, you can get a hold of them through the Condo Coaches, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Help at thecondocoaches.com is our email address, help at thecondocoaches.com, or there are many ways to get a hold of us through our website. You can do that at thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. What we're talking about today, to reset the conversation a little bit, is the legal rights of a condominium and homeowners association when they're dealing with insurance losses. Because even though we've been focused mostly on condominium buildings in this episode, and some of the examples we're giving, this also applies to single-family home community when you're talking about the amenities, some of the different, elements that are owned by the community as a whole. Whereas, of course, they have their own issues to deal with when it comes to their homeowners policy. But even as a community, there's still things that they are responsible for, or the board of directors is responsible for, to make sure that they're making claims on any insurance losses in the case of a catastrophe.
Yes, and all of these tips I'm giving can apply whether you're in a single family unit or all of these property insurance policies have the same type of format where they...
And townhomes too as well.
Correct.
We use the term condominium, and most times we forget that includes townhome communities in most cases, because not all townhomes are listed as legally as individual homes. They are listed as condominium homes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and all of these building owners, or no matter what type of the manner in which you own that structure, whether it be a unit owner or a single family home or a condominium building or a co-op or homeowners association, while the obligations of the insurance company may differ depending on that setup, all these policies do have a common thread, and that is the building owner also has obligations under that contract. And if you don't meet your obligations and do your duties, then you're not going to get paid for your claim.
Right.
So prompt notice of the loss.
They get off the hook.
We talked about that. That's right. Potentially, they get off the hook.
Right.
Prompt notice of the loss. We talked about mitigating the damages. That's critical. You could end up with nothing if you don't mitigate those damages. So that's where we discuss, getting someone who's trustworthy to maybe, have a relationship with that emergency services company ahead of time. Review the paperwork ahead of time, so you're not there reviewing this assignment of benefits. And there are some bad apples out there. There are some abusive companies in that industry, but there's some wonderful ones too. And you don't want to be in an emergency situation like, I'll just go with that person because I just don't have a choice.
So we've talked about the before. We're now currently discussing the during, what to do during a catastrophic insurance situation. In the next segment, we'll talk about what to do afterwards. And so, again, Christy is our guest coach today. We're talking about insurance losses and your legal rights on a board of directors for your community's board of directors. If you want to participate in the Condo Coaches, give us a call, 813-331-5415.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. there's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese.
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you very much for listening. Again, whenever and wherever you are, you can find us at thecondocoaches.com, facebook.com/thecondocoaches, youtube.com/thecondocoaches, and you can podcast our show on SoundCloud and iTunes just by searching The Condo Coaches. So thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want to participate in the show, it's very easy to do. You can do so on our Facebook live stream. You can also do it by emailing us, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, or by calling 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. And it doesn't matter when you're listening to this show. Even if it's midnight, Dean Akers will answer that phone call. Now watch,
24/7, yeah, somebody's going to call
Somebody is going to test me on that. And
I actually had somebody test us on this, and they called on a Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I did answer.
There you go.
It freaked them out. They just were like, okay, I tap out, I'm in.
Well, I remember you also got a call, was it Christmas Day?
Oh, yeah.
Christmas Day, yeah. So Dean's going to answer that phone. So 813-331-5415. And we have, of course, a great guest coach with us today, Kristi Demers-Crowell.
Yes, sir.
I got it.
You got
I
it.
got it. And so she is a plaintiff's attorney. We're talking about insurance losses and your legal rights if you're sitting on a board of directors, and what legal rights does your community association have? We talked about, before a catastrophe happens, how to prepare. We talked about getting an assessment done, which we're happy to do as the Condo Coaches free of charge. You let us know that you will need an assessment for your community done. We'll come out, do that free assessment. You also need an appraisal. You know, that's also highly recommended, so you know whether or not you're adequately insured as a community. Now, you talked about documenting your request or your loss, right? So when you file that claim or you give notice of that claim, that you're documenting that. You mentioned some of the ways to do that. You said email, right?
Yes.
Phone call. Or even by video today, you know, you can record the conversation that you're having with your agent or the insurance company.
Exactly. You want to make sure if you're going to report the claim just by phone that you're documenting the date and time you did that, the name of the person you made the report to, but preferably do it in writing if at all possible. But that's not always possible. So in the event you have to report by phone, make sure you document.
And even if you have a friendship with your agent, you know, I would say don't feel bad to go around them and go directly to the insurance company and do both, just to make sure, just covering your bases, make sure that you not only let your agent know, but you also let the insurance company know as well.
Definitely. Exactly. The other thing we talked about kind of goes into the next segment we're moving into now, which is what do you do after the catastrophe, and how do you ensure that you're getting paid everything you're owed by the insurance company? Because that never happens, that an insurance company shortchanges someone.
Right. No, never. Come on now.
So we talked about prompt notice and all these duties that a building owner has under their property insurance policy. Mm-hmm. Prompt notice, trying to do your best to mitigate the damages. And another really important thing, especially as an attorney, from my standpoint, when I unfortunately get brought into these claims, is preservation of evidence. Don't throw anything away, whether it be contents, rugs, building materials. You might
don't have the cleanup crews come in right away and
see, and that stands at odds, of course, with the mitigation of the damages and keeping it from getting worse.
Sure.
And what you should be getting out of your insurance company is guidance on this. You should be asking them, do I have your permission to throw things away? If you could get them to say that in writing, that's going to be your best bet.
And still document, right? I mean, take video, take pictures.
Exactly. And if you get a really good mitigation company involved, they may be very versed on how to preserve the evidence. Okay. Take the pictures and the video. If there's a plumbing problem, this fire sprinkler example I gave earlier, don't throw it, and you have a plumber or an expert come in to fix it, don't throw any of the parts away.
Right.
That's a really important evidence. So it's critical to preserve the evidence. But not just that, you got to get the right people involved. And I'm sure that Dean, being a condo coach and going into this venture, has seen a lot of situations where condo associations got the wrong people involved. And what happens when you're way down the road and you've gotten the wrong people involved?
Right. And what the biggest thing we were talking about is lack of experience.
Right.
So that's another reason for the condo coaches, getting the right people. We have condo coaches that go in, again, they're not selling. That's part of our deal. But they'll help advise what that right person looks like.
To point you in the right direction and,
right.
and kind of give you a helping hand, especially in a scenario like that where any bit of help, I'm sure, is incredibly needed. And one of the other things that I want to ask you, of course, being an attorney, is when is the right time to call an attorney? When do you realize that maybe you're not where you need to be with your insurance company in the process in the middle of a catastrophe like this where you're trying to file a claim?
To be honest, the best time to call an attorney is from the very beginning.
Okay.
Most of the attorneys who do this type of work that I do it on a contingency fee basis, and they do free consultations up front so that to get you off on the right foot. You need to get the claim set up properly. And when I say bring in the right people, you need the right team of experts. And a lot of times the attorney, if you have a good experienced property insurance attorney, they'll advance the costs for those experts so the board does not have to bear that financial burden.
Got it.
When I say experts, I'm talking about structural engineers, building envelope experts, industrial hygienists. You may need fire engineers who are versed in fire investigation. If you have a sinkhole claim, I mean, there's a whole nother team of experts involved.
Sure.
Geotechnical engineers, geophysical testing. And that can be very overwhelming for a building owner, for a board. That's not their area of expertise. Mm-hmm. And you should not, unfortunately, we're beyond the time where you can just rely on the insurance company to do their investigation and then, they shortchanged me, so now let me start from scratch with getting my own team in place.
Right.
Believe it or not, making that investment of time and make the lawyer invest the money, perhaps, or make that investment yourself in the experts of the funds to have this team in place, ultimately may result, if you get your team countering the insurance company's team in place. We're not saying we're trying to prove they're wrong. We want to verify that what they're doing is correct.
So it's more for checks and balances and making
Exactly.
sure that everyone is doing their part to see this through.
Exactly. And when they see you got your own team in place of all those experts, whatever ones are necessary, a general contractor bid in place, you might have more than one. When they see that, a lot of times these claims get resolved without the need for litigation or going into a lawsuit.
Right.
If, Lord forbid, and in there,
and even avoiding mediation even.
Exactly.
Right.
And Lord forbid you still end up with an insurance company who will not pay the claim fairly. Now you're ready to take it all the way. You could go to court if you needed to.
Right.
You need to bring an attorney in at some point if you've done everything you're supposed to do. And the insurance company, a lot of times, and I do want to make sure people know this, they might ask you for a bunch of records. They might start investigating you, the building owner or the board. And that feels bad. It feels like it's an intrusive thing,
right.
But you need to understand that your insurance policy gives them the right to do that.
Right, and they're looking for negligence. I mean, that may have led to
lack of maintenance
sure,
that they can
right.
perhaps blame, or that might be an alternate cause of the damages.
Yeah.
So, that's something, if you start getting, if the claim takes that kind of a turn where you're being investigated, you may even as a board be asked to come in and provide examinations under oath, which is, it's like a deposition with a court reporter, and they're perfectly entitled under the policy to do that. You absolutely have to have, in my view, an attorney with you by your side at that point. You don't want to navigate that without the help of an attorney at that point.
But Christy, isn't it, you and I have talked a lot about this. Prevention is 99%. So if somebody would engage and make sure they read their documents, know the requirements, know the list, they're going to solve a lot of their own problems.
Absolutely.
It's like a snowball. Once it gets out of control, if you're sitting in a deposition, it probably got out of control.
I mean, not necessarily. These examinations under oath are tools that the insurance company can use as just part of their normal investigation of the claim. And they've gotten more and more aggressive about using that tool. So it just depends on the insurance company.
But if you're in a deposition and you haven't prepared and they ask you, did you, and your attorney's saying, shut up. I've done a lot of business litigation in previous companies I've owned. The shut-ups in depositions or, the no comments are about as damaging as a comment.
You're going to feel much more comfortable going into an examination under oath when you already have your own engineering report saying all of this is covered, when you have your own general contracting estimate from a reputable general contractor saying they owe you $1 million, they've only paid $500. These things are going to make you feel very comfortable as a board member going in. All
right. Well, obviously we need to have you back.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much, Christy, for being here. Head coach Dean Akers, as always, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's been another episode of the Condo Coaches radio show. TheCondoCoaches.com is where you can find us. Thank you so much for listening.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.